Our first impression of 2024. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my first impression reaction to Frieren? How do you pronounce this? I genuinely don't know. I've never heard it pronounced. All I know is that this series is actually pretty big right now. It's getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people are just talking about it. I luckily haven't heard much of any spoilers. All I know is that it is, I guess, centered around and named after this white-haired elf girl who, because she's an elf, is older than, I guess, a lot of the other characters. And that's a major plot point, that she's older. Or at least it's a notable plot point. It's kind of the main thing I've heard about this series. I don't know, like, how important it is. I don't know what the general gist other than that is of this series. And I've only seen, like, images of one other character. This, I guess, relatively compared to the elf girl. Tall girl clad in all purple, I think it is. But this series is getting a lot of attention, and I'm just curious as to why. Because whenever a series gets a lot of attention like this, whenever it gets like just huge popularity, I want to know why. I want to see what the big deal is. Even if it doesn't end up being something for me, I want to at least check it out. And I'm choosing to do this one via a first impressions reaction. So, if you are new to the channel and don't know what that is, let me explain real quick. A first impressions reaction is where I check out the first episode or so of a series. I give it my initial thoughts and determine whether I want to continue reacting to it in the future or not. There's basically three different outcomes. Either I will react to it at some point in the future, it's added onto my list, and I get to it as part of the slot for first impressions reactions on our schedule. The second option is that I liked it, but not enough to where I'd want to react to it. I'd rather watch it on my own time. It's something that just I don't want to put like a huge amount of effort into recording for. And the third option is, of course, I just didn't like it. Can obviously be to varying degrees, but the gist is it's not for me. And because of that, I'm choosing not to continue it probably at all. So those are the three options. Just as a note as well, if I do end up continuing it, it's not going to be right away. It's one of those where, like I said, it's added to my list, and I will get back to in the future. I have a certain number of reactions currently that are first impression reactions. They're specifically shows I'm reacted to that I did a first impressions on. And we only do so many of those at a time because I only have enough time to get to so much at a time. But we have two shows currently going that are for first impressions, and so whenever one finishes, I just continue with another, or if I end up dropping it for whatever reason, I continue with another. The point is, things will be gotten to eventually. And if I like it well enough, this could even like be moved up higher on the list. It could like kind of get almost a priority spot in a way. That has happened before. But yeah, so I once again don't know much going into this. I'm just going in mostly based on popularity, and that could go any which way. Knowing me and knowing my tastes, that can really go anywhere. But I'm excited to see what our first impression of 2024 gives to us. Hopefully, it ends up being a really good one, but you never know. So, that being said, also for those who are new, just as a note, we redirect things just to keep safe with copyright laws and everything. All reactions are redirected currently onto 100 free. The link to that is in the description below. You can go down below, click the link, follow it to the reaction, and after you watch it, you can come back here to the redirect and check out my afterthoughts. I'll give detailed thoughts on everything about the episode and what I thought about it, in this case, based on my first impressions. Um, the redirect is just to keep safe. I know that a lot of people would prefer it to be on YouTube just for sake of ease and everything, but it's just an extra click. It's one extra click. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. Um, and it should be accessible on pretty much everything. The only kind of exception is if you are using an account that is not 18 plus. Because of YouTube's copyright bullshit, there's issues with that for some reason. Um, but this is an 18 plus channel anyway, so if you're not 18 plus and watching this channel, you probably shouldn't be. Excuse me. But like I said, link is in the description below. So go there, because after this redirect fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. But all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, yeah, I will see you at the redirect, or at the reaction. I haven't done this for a while, okay? I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So if you're new to the channel, there's something I tend to say a lot of times. If a series can make me cry, especially in the first episode, it's won me over. It's something special. Because I'm not saying that like from a angle to where it's hard to make me cry. It's really not. It's actually pretty easy. But when I tend to cry at a series, it's usually for a reason. Like, I don't just cry for nothing. It's easy to make me cry, but it's for a reason. Usually it either is because of like getting very strongly emotionally attached to characters, obviously an extremely emotional moment that feels well built up. Even something that's just like super happy and triumphant can make me cry. It doesn't have to be something sad. It can be exciting and fun and just hype. um, but even though it doesn't take a lot, again, it takes certain things to make me cry. And when a first episode can do it, that always stands out to me. Probably the biggest example off the top of my head that I can give is Carol and Tuesday. I went into Carol and Tuesday knowing a little bit about it because, I mean, it's kind of the reason I wanted to check it out. And the first episode made me cry. It hooked me in that quickly. It just won me over with its characters, its story, its music, and ended up becoming one of my favorite shows. And now I can say the same about this. And for kind of a lot of the same reasons. The characters, the story, the music. I mean, the music is obvious. It's gorgeous. Not just the opening and ending theme, but the insert songs as well. They just work so well to express emotion. Um, they really get across everything that the series is trying to. Um, but you also have the story and characters, which just if you're new to the channel and everything, just as a note, those are always the most important things for a series or a movie or a game or anything for me. I put story and characters first because they're, in my eyes, literally the backbone of a piece of media. Like, you can have great music, you can have great animation, you can have all of that stuff, but it means nothing if the story and characters aren't tightly written as well. So I view that other kind of stuff as basically just a bonus. It's nice, but it doesn't make or break a series. A series can be absolutely shit in terms of animation, but have such a good story and characters that it entirely makes up for it. Or a series can have like the best animation ever, but honestly kind of fall apart in terms of story and characters. If the story and characters don't work, that's kind of a big thing for me. And obviously it's all subjective. Anyone can look at it any way they want. Um, I'm not saying that my view is the correct view or anything. No, it's just my personal subjective view. But I'm just saying this is my first impression to this series. But as I've been clearly pointing out, this is very well handled in terms of the characters and the story. This first episode spans the course of 70 years. From our party coming back from their big adventure defeating the Demon King to Frieren taking on Fern as an apprentice, whether she will kind of admit to it or not. And her reasoning for not wanting to do so is entirely fair. Like, it's not out of any selfish, like, dislike of taking on apprentices or anything. No. It's because she genuinely doesn't want to put this girl in danger, especially because of a request from a friend. It's like, it's genuinely a valid reason. um, but 70 years this first episode takes place in. That's not something you see often. Like, I'm sure there's other anime where first episodes or whatnot, or just the series in general, have, like, notable time period, skipping around and everything. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, like, there will just be random points that skips ahead months and stuff, for example. But it's usually not too long. Like, there's not like this massive passage of time in Brotherhood. Uh, Especially not compared to something like this, but just as an example. There's probably other series that are, better examples of this. I just can't think of any specifically off the top of my head. But 70 years. And in those 70 years, we get to see that while Frieren doesn't really change, all of her friends grow old, going from appearing to be in their 20s, at least based off of the human ones, to being dead. And we see that, like, she doesn't fully understand it. Being an elf and having such a long lifespan to the point where she's not even really changing in these 70 years at all. She doesn't fully grasp what it's like to be human and to age at that kind of rate. Even her dwarven friend ages quicker than her. And so she's seeing a different perspective of things than she ever has before. And she realizes at Himmel's funeral, I believe it was Himmel, right? Sorry if I don't get all the names completely down. That's me. I have a hard time with names sometimes, and it usually takes me a little bit to get them completely down. But I believe it was Himmel who died. Because Heiter was the priest, and the dwarf was something else. I believe it was Himmel. Anyway, um, at his funeral, at his burial, Frieren, who hadn't found herself emotional up to this point, broke. She cried. And she didn't understand it. Because as she said, she didn't really get to know them that well. They spent 10 years together, which for us as humans is a long time. A decade is a good chunk of time. But but for her it's nothing. It's really nothing at all. And thinking about that, by the way, they spent a decade together, so they actually probably the humans probably would have been in like their 30s then. So Heiter would probably be like around more like 100, like early hundreds, maybe late 90s, somewhere around there though. Um, so he would have been pretty damn old. Because yeah, if that was 10 years after they started their journey, like he would have had to have. He might have been a teenager at the beginning, but I feel like if he was already a priest, it's probably unlikely. He was probably at least 18. Um, but more than likely a few years older than that, probably. Um, but yeah, it's like she realizes she hasn't really gotten to know them at all during that time. And that while she has like definitely fond memories of adventuring with them, she doesn't fully understand why this has hit her so hard, suddenly out of nowhere. So when she leaves again, she de- she makes a declaration that she's going to find out, that she's going to spend time with humans and learn about them. Not just do her normal stuff gathering spells, but actually try to understand why she got so emotional there. She wants to know more about people, not out of some desire to study them, but because she genuinely wants to form these connections and understand why they matter so much. Understand why time is so important to humans. And that's one hell of a premise. um, that's a crazy premise to throw at us right from the bat. Because the thing is, we kind of step into Frieren's boots a little here. This episode is 20 something minutes, like 22 minutes, and takes place over the course of like three different time periods over the course of 70 years as in total. We see these characters throughout two different time periods, and then one of them in the final time period. And with all of that, we don't really get to know them that well. We learn like basic traits about them, like Heiter had a drinking problem that he eventually did get over. But we don't really get to know them. And I feel that's very intentional. It's supposed to give us that same feeling that Frieren has. We're supposed to feel like, why are we getting emotional over Himmel's death when we barely knew him? And you could come up with multiple different answers for that in reality. And the one that obviously makes the most sense to me is just because we're seeing, the emotion of the scene and of the character, and that's what's making us emotional by proxy. But that's the thing, we're figuring it out, just like she has to do. We're trying to find out why this works. We're put into Frieren's shoes. And that makes it work all the more. Because that puts us along with her on this journey of discovery. And with Fern coming in at the end and basically ending up being Frieren's apprentice in a way, like, that's something we're going to follow along with. Now, most of this series, I feel, is going to take place in like the time period of Fern as an adult. Basically what we saw in the opening and all, with the rest of the party that ends up joining the red-haired dude, for example. That's what most of this series I feel is going to be. But I also believe, and I don't know if this is true, I don't know if this is based off a manga or a light novel or whatnot. Um, and I know the series is still ongoing. But I believe that probably by the end, we're going to skip ahead again. Probably to Fern's death. With Frieren having found out why she has these emotions. And to have discovered so much about herself because of Fern. I 100% could see that happening. Kind of coming full circle in a way. Now, again, I don't know what the plan is here. I don't know if this is based off of something. I assume it probably is. I don't know, like, where it's going to go. I don't know pretty much anything about where the plot or anything goes from here. Like I said, all I knew going into this was Elf Girl, and that her age, the fact that she ages slower than others, is important to the plot, which it definitely is. It is definitely a main point of her character and the story. So, I'm very interested to see where this goes. Because if it wasn't clear, yes, we are definitely going to be continuing in this in the future. I don't know exactly when. I can't promise when that's going to be right now. Um, just like with anything, this will be added to the list. Like I mentioned in the pre-thoughts, it'll be added to my list, and I'll get back to it when I can. Obviously, there's some stuff that's been on the list longer, but also it kind of just comes down to mood. Like when a slot opens up, it's just like, okay, what am I in the mood to get to next? Um, but yeah, we'll get back to this for sure, though. Everything on the list will be gotten back to. This is definitely one of them. Um, I might get back to this a little quicker, a little sooner, but I can't promise anything. So this will definitely be brought back. I really enjoyed this first episode. I think it did a wonderful job at expressing the emotion of this all. And I'm very excited to continue in the future. So, yeah. But tell me your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of this first episode of Frieren? And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.